So the Lakers are going to fire Frank Vogel. That's the word. They're going to try to hire Quinn Snyder. I don't think that's the problem. And I think we all know what I'm about to say. We all know this is true. The only way to solve a problem, a family problem, a business problem, a basketball problem, only way to solve it is to first identify what the problem is. So Anthony Davis says, it was a disappointing season, but I know what the solution is. Here's a star player for the Lakers.
This year we had more starting lineup than we had wins. Our goal was to win the championship. So we had the pieces. But injuries got in the way of that. And that was a difference in our season. I think even though we lost games where all of us was on the floor, me, Bron, Russ, I think we were three great players, but we would have, figured it out if we lost more minutes together.
Oh, that's adorable. That's the problem. Just Russell Westbrook, me, and LeBron have to play more together. We would have figured it out. Westbrook hasn't figured out how to shoot in 15 years. He's a guard. That's like saying I can't sell my house. It must be the paint. Oh, boy. Injuries happen all over this league. They didn't derail the Clippers. They're going to be in the playoffs. Didn't derail the Nuggets. They'll be in. Didn't derail the Warriors. Didn't derail Memphis. God, they lost Ja Morant. Didn't derail Utah. In the East, the Bulls, major injuries. Lonzo Ball's out. Alex Caruso was out. They're going to make the playoffs. It didn't derail the Nets. They're in a play-in game. Their guys wouldn't even get vaxxed. They couldn't play home games. They're going to do. Everybody got hurt. Everybody had major injuries to stars. And they're all either in the playoffs or in the play-in game. AD's solution, not to pick on AD, is just more of what we did. That'll be great. Yeah, you guys played together 21 games. You were 11-10. You were average together. You're getting older. LeBron's in his 20th year, and Westbrook is shot. The answer is not more of that. You got to give me a break here. The story this morning is, hey, we didn't make the playoffs. No, it's worse than that. The Lakers, in the second half of the season, had a worse record than tanking Portland. Portland won 11 games after the All-Star break, Lakers 10. The Lakers are 17 games under 500. The Lakers are closer to last place in the NBA than the 7th spot in the West. Folks, no tweaking is going to fix this. There's no tweak on the market. The answer is not more of this. Okay, the answer is not fire Frank Vogel and give Quinn Snyder the job. Is Quinn Snyder rolling through the West? No, why? Because he didn't have enough athletic wings. He's got an all-star guard and an all-star center. And he wins a playoff series every year. Maybe 2. That's what you can do with that roster. The answer is not firing Frank Vogel, and the answer is certainly not more of what we've seen. The answer is blow this puppy up. The solution isn't more of what we've been watching this year. Westbrook shot. LeBron will be in his 20th year. They're both super expensive. AD's super expensive. And in the last decade, twice he's played over 70 games. And you want more of that. The agents, the stars, they can't even identify what the problem is. And I don't have any great solution today because the NBA is paralyzed by, quote, competitive balance. So it's not a league of hope. If you're bad and have bad contracts, you're bad for years and years and years. That's why the NFL continues to separate from the NBA. You can go from irrelevant to fantastic in about 2 drafts and 2 free agency periods. I mean, Jacksonville's been a tire fire for years. They just went and spent $200 million on free agents, got a new coach, have a promising quarterback. I kind of want to watch them play. It doesn't work that way in the NBA. But the answer is not more of this. They played 21 games together. They're all really expensive. They won 11. They're worse in the second half than Portland. And Portland's, competing, but tanking. Oh, boy. Bill Orm from The Athletic was on earlier this week. And the Lakers, because they are such a gigantic brand in a glamour sport, can usually, faster than other franchises, pivot. The question now, as Bill asks, can they?
I think LeBron and AD are going to be the centerpiece of this, at least for another year. The Russell Westbrook component is much more interesting. I do blame Russ, the contract, and the decision to trade for Russ for basically everything that's happened and all the pieces that basically had to fit around him. One thing we know about the Lakers is that their value system is give us cap space and we will bring in a superstar. And that worked for them once in 2018 when LeBron James decided to come to the Lakers. But you saw it year and year again at the end of Kobe Bryant's career. Stars didn't want to do that. And it will be very interesting to see if at the end of LeBron's career, if the Lakers do preserve that cap space, if stars are going to want to come play with LeBron at 39, 40, 41 years old.
And that's an intriguing question. LeBron in his prime, absolutely. Ray Allen, Shane Battier, Chris Bosh, Kevin Love would give up big chunks of their identity to play with LeBron. In year 20, I think LeBron's more interested in elevating Bronny than teammates. I think LeBron has his money, has his rings, has his legacy. I think it's about family now. It's about family and business. He doesn't seem that deeply bothered by losing. I mean, he wants to win. We know that. And for the record, I think all athletes, when they hit the mogul stage, Brady's the exception, winning's part of it. It's not everything. But I don't think in year 20 and 21 of LeBron, young stars are going to want to hand over some of their game for LeBron, who only plays really one way, with the ball in his hands. I do not see a way out unless you blow it up. I'm interested to hear from Nick Wright, who's got a new podcast called What's Right with Nick Wright. Let's bring him on. Can you wrap a bow on this on this present that has been the Lakers season? Wrap a bow on it if you could, only the way Nick Wright could.
Well, it's the greatest failure in franchise history. It's one of the greatest failures in NBA history. StatMuse had a tweet. I trust them on it. They started doing championship preseason odds in Vegas in 1985. Since then, every single team that was either the favorite or the second favorite to win the title has made the playoffs. The Lakers will be the first not to. Now, the Nets, if they end up falling out, if they end up losing in the play-in, would be the other team to do it. But they haven't been a disaster. They've just been disappointing. And it's a failure at every level, from the front office to the head coach to the players. And to me, Colin, there's two major takeaways about the two players that matter for the Lakers, LeBron and Anthony Davis. May I give them both to you?
Sure, please.
I think I can. Sure, no problem. LeBron this year is going to finish averaging 38 and 6. And I think it's pretty damn clear that we all have to acknowledge and admit he's no longer in his prime. His prime started in 06 and it ended with the championship. And the real signal he was no longer in his prime should have been last year's playoffs, where for the first time in a decade, he wasn't dominant in the postseason. And the answer was, well, his ankle's not right. But during his prime, somehow the ankle was always right.
That's right.
Even when it wasn't right, he was okay.
Yep.
So he is still clearly one of the, at worst, 7 best players in the sport, but he is no longer a walking finals berth. The other takeaway is this. I watched last night's game, Colin, and when I turned it on, I'm like, you know what? Maybe AD will just throw the Lakers on his back, put up a 40 and 20, and keep this awful season alive for another day. And I realized shortly into the game, Colin, that simply doesn't happen anymore.
That's right.
Anthony Davis scored more than 35 points in a game this year 0 times. That's not because of injury. His second to last year with New Orleans, he did it 17 times.
Yeah.
His first year with the Lakers, he did it 10 times, plus a couple in the postseason. AD did not have a single great, truly great game all year. He's 29 years old.
Yeah.
I've never seen something like it.
Yeah.
At 27 years old, he wins the title, was great that entire postseason, outplayed Jokic, had 34 and 32 in his first 2 career finals games. Since then, he's scored more than 35 in a game 4 times total.
Yeah.
I've never seen, and let me tell you one other thing. and I hate to put you on the spot like this, but I'm going to do it because I know you haven't looked it up. Give it a guess. What do you think AD shot from three this year? For context, Russ shot 29% from three. Can you guess what AD's three-point percentage was?
27%.
18%, Colin.
Wow.
On almost 2 a game.
And by the way, he doesn't want
to... It was the worst in the league.
Yeah.
By a mile.
Yeah.
The worst in the league by a mile. He was 34% for 4 years in a row, basically. I don't know what's happened. I've never seen something like it.
Well, I think we all think that athletes peak 27 to 32, but the truth is he peaked 2 years ago. His body's fallen apart. This often happens for bigs. Porzingis probably peaked at 22 years old. It sometimes happens. Greg Oden may have peaked his last year of college. Sometimes for bigs, they peak earlier. They fall apart sooner. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as we both watch Winning Time, is an absolute exception, lasting 20 years.
Sure.
I think AD peaked 2-3 years ago.
That's fair. I understand that. I guess my only question would be, even if the body is betraying him, why, when he's out there, has he not in the last couple years showed had the brilliant games? Even if the body is breaking down so he's not out there as often, it's unfathomable to me that Anthony Davis, in what should be his prime, could play, even though he's only played 40 games. He doesn't have a single 40-point game. There's 11 guys this year that scored more than 35 at least 10 times. And Anthony Davis didn't do it once all year? It's baffling. I can't figure this one out.
What did you make of Magic and Kareem, but let's stay mostly with Magic, the biggest sports star easily in this city? The biggest sports star in your city is probably Derek Jeter all time. Up there, obviously. Chicago, sure. It's Jordan. Dallas, it's probably Staubach, Aikman. Every city has a guy. Miami, it's D. Wade or Marino. What did you make of Magic publicly hammering LeBron on the Westbrook-DeRozan deal?
Well, listen, Magic's one of the 4 greatest players ever, in my opinion, and I have massive respect for him. Nobody likes hearing Magic Johnson's voice more than Magic Johnson does, and this is a little Monday morning quarterbacking. The questioning whether or not Russell Westbrook would work, that's fair. A lot of people did it. You did it. Skip did it. I did it to a lesser degree in real time. The idea that any of us saw DeMar DeRozan, a career 44%, 22 a game guy, being 28 a game on 50%, nobody saw it coming. That part's not fair.
Yeah, it's true.
He looked like a slightly deteriorating player in San Antonio. And I did not hear anybody after the Bulls got DeRozan say, oh, look out for DeMar DeRozan to show up on some MVP ballots this year. Now, to his credit, he did it. But this, to me, is the NBA version, you'll remember this, Colin, of remember when Rich Gannon went to the Raiders and won league MVP? It's like, oh, where did this come from? Like, DeMar DeRozan having this year at this point in his career, I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
Now, what anyone could have seen coming, and a lot of people did, and I foolishly still picked the Lakers to win the title, even though I had questions about it, was that Russ wasn't going to be a great fit. But the big issue I have with LeBron being the one singled out for the Westbrook thing is, and we've talked about this before, the Lakers have shown they will ignore LeBron when they want to. Exhibit A is the fact that Ty Lue and Jason Kidd are not the head coach and Frank Vogel for at least the next 96 hours is. So you can't ignore LeBron on the head coach thing and then act like he forced your hand on the Russ thing. Yes, he wanted it. Yes, he pushed for it. But if you thought it was going to be a disaster, you'd have said no to it. So someone in that Lakers front office also liked the idea.
Finally, I said yesterday, KD says his injury derailed the Nets, and I'm like, I'm not sure they've ever been on the rails. Charlie Sheen's career was derailed. Tiger's was derailed. Since he and KD arrived, they've won 54% of their games. What do you make of KD, your new buddy, by the way, on the social media stuff? What do you make of KD, Kyrie, where they're at right now?
Well, I thought I had a different takeaway from Katie's comment, which was our season was derailed, which means Katie agrees with you and me and not with Vegas, which is that this Nets team can't win a title. Colin, I always say, whether you're talking about marriages or seasons, once you go to the past tense, not a good sign. Well, we had a good marriage. Well, you're still married. Like, what are you telling me? So, and when Katie starts saying our season was derailed, that to me is a sign that he knows no matter how great he is, and he is unquestionably one of the 3 greatest players alive, that this team doesn't have the defense, the depth, or the coaching to scare anyone in the postseason. So I know Vegas thinks I'm crazy on that. Vegas thinks they have the second best chance to win the East.
I know.
I would be utterly shocked if they win 1 round. I think they'll get out of the play-in, and I think that will be it for them. And then I do wonder, Colin, and you've been on this for a long time from KD's perspective, but I do wonder if both Steph and KD sometimes think, staring at the ceiling, man, things were better when we played together. Because Steph, since they left, Steph missed the playoffs, then missed the playoffs again. By the way, Steph last year, scoring champ, missed the playoffs, still got first-team All-NBA. I wonder if LeBron's going to get that dispensation. But I digress. And then this year, we'll see what happens with the Warriors. Since KD left Steph, he, obviously missed a year with an injury, lost in round 2 last year, and this year they'll be lucky to get to round 2. And so, I do think that there's probably a little wistfulness maybe on both of their behalves.
Good to see you, my friend. We don't have time for this. I don't know if you heard Tyreek Hill left the Chiefs and Stephon Diggs re-signed with the Bills. I wish we had time to get into it, but it's a troubling sign.
No, listen, Colin, you've taught me. Paying wide receivers $30 million a year, it's good business. I'm sure you love both those things. The Chiefs, just, frugal cap management, building for the long term, but you've always liked those flashy wide receivers. You've never called them the icing on the cake. So I'm sure you love paying all these guys $30 million a year. It'll never bite anybody. Talk to you later.
Nick Wright. By the way, What's Right with Nick Wright, new podcast, Sun's on it. Great. See you, buddy.